So most of what I have to say in this class comes from an evidence-based modality of psychotherapy known as internal family systems. That forms the basis for what I'm about to say. And I actually have come to feel that this particular theoretical framework actually accounts for so much of the human experience that is otherwise mysterious or difficult to understand, which is why I speak from this vantage point, even more so than Buddhism in a lot of cases, which for me is saying a lot. But today I want to share with you something that seems to be a universal truth. And that is that when we get too close to our experience, one, we tend to lose ourselves, lose our identities, lose our minds, so to speak. Our minds can be stolen. And two, we tend to go down a path that doesn't lead to the best results. When we find ourselves too close to our experience, our minds are stolen, and we go down a path that leads to negative results or undesired results. This is true of intimate relationships. When we get enmeshed, when we might say to ourselves, or maybe not even say it to ourselves, but act as if, here is this person who is going to solve everything for me. Finally, I've been waiting for the one, and here they are, the person that's going to make it all make sense and make all of those vacations and other projects seem worthwhile, and is going to give me the love that I've been looking for my entire life. And we go in way too close, way too fast, right? And then we lose ourselves in that. We lose aspects of our identity. We lose the things that we care about. We lose our plans and ambitions for ourselves, and we end up in a place that isn't so great. This is true in spiritual communities. In fact, we're seeing a lot of this right now. If any of you are privy to what's going on at the Shambhala, with Shambhala International and their main teacher, Sakyong Mipam Rinpoche. He's in a line of many. There's also Sogyal Rinpoche, a really big Tibetan Buddhist teacher who just got uncovered that he was actually beating some of his students. This is true of Sri Patabi Joyce, of the founder of the Ashtanga yoga tradition, which is responsible for most of the yoga that we have in the West. He was just outed, even though he's no longer with us, as being human, fallible, and subject to aggressive and myopic and harmful acts. People tend to sense in spiritual communities and with spiritual teachers, again, here's the love I've been waiting for, here's the person who knows everything, here's the thing that makes sense to me, finally, something makes sense to me, something seems to work in this broken world, and we get too close, and we lose parts of ourselves, and the outcome isn't so great. This can also be true with our emotional lives. That when emotions, and especially the strong emotions, for me the two great polarities are anger and loneliness. Those are the two that seem to be the strongest, the most intoxicating, and that create the most visceral reactions in me. I don't know about y'all, but like anger is the one that seduces me and takes over and hijacks me, and like the moment it comes up, I'm too close. I'm like this with it. And all of a sudden it's calling all of the shots, and I find myself doing things I ordinarily wouldn't do, and basically leaving situations in my wake that I then have to apologize for later, right? And then loneliness is another one that can be so intense when it comes up, and it feels total. Right? When we feel lonely, and we actually, if we even allow it into our experience, because we're so quick to say, okay, fuck, why am I single? I better do some swiping, right? Or I better head out on the town with my friends, or I better just silence that right away by watching Netflix or hitting the vape pen or whatever it is that is your personal go-to. But when we allow loneliness to come in, it tends to be quite total. It tends to, again, just kind of automatically consume us, right? But this is true with all of our pronounced emotional states. You know, when they are triggered and when they arise, we find ourselves in them rather than with them. And we talk like this in our culture: I'm angry, as opposed to I feel anger. And I think that statement is actually indicative of the psychology of the matter, actually, that in the moment that I'm saying I'm angry, it literally feels like I am that anger. Y'all know what I'm talking about? And it's a mess, right? One, we lose ourselves. Again, we tend to do things we ordinarily wouldn't do. We react in ways that we wouldn't react in other situations. Or maybe we treat ourselves in ways that we would never accept from another person, or say things to ourselves that we would never accept from another person, right? And again, anytime we're triggered and we're in that emotion, like really the only thing we can do if we don't want to create more confusion and more suffering in our lives is stop. Just stop. Especially with anger, but also with sadness, loneliness, and the rest: anxiety, worry, panic, fear. We have to learn how to just stop, because anything we do when we're in a triggered state is going to take us down a road that does not best serve our interests and our relationships. So what nobody tells us in this life is that the moment a strong emotion comes up, we actually have three choices. Ordinarily, we conceive of two choices. I can either indulge that emotion, again, just going off with anger and, you know, telling some people off or doing whatever it is what you do when you're angry, or I can repress. I can indulge or I can repress. Either I go into it and it's telling me what to do now, it's informing my behaviors, thoughts, and speech, or I can just shut it off and stuff it down, right? Which is the life many of us have chosen, consciously or unconsciously. But the thing is with option number one, indulging, we create more problems, and with option number two, repressing, you know, we now know that all kinds of physiological diseases come from emotions that we are not processing. They don't go away. They come out in other ways. Either they somatize and become physical ailments, or they come up in obscured ways, and we maybe take them out on somebody else that in ways that we don't mean to, right? Or we just find ourselves so clogged up, so cloudy, so swollen with emotion that we kind of lose our sense of clarity or directionality in our lives altogether. But the third option, which is the option I want to explore in this practice, is to stop, recognize what's going on, and learn to put a little bit of space between ourselves and what's going on, without indulging, without repressing. Middle path. A little bit of space so that we can just be with what's going on. And when we do that, the opportunity is then to, one, just get out of this neurotic, pushing away and clinging to situation, but two, to begin to be a little kinder towards ourselves and towards our emotional experience. And also, our emotions exist for a reason. Everything about us exists for a reason. There's no part of us that doesn't exist for a reason. Just as with your body, you know, all of your organs have a function. Your skin has a function. Your fascial layer has a function. Your blood cells has a function. Same thing with our psyches and our hearts. All parts of us, and we're made of parts. We're not just one continuous self. Just like your body is made of parts, but we call it a body. The self is made of parts, and we just call it a self. But all of the different parts of us serve a function of some sort that is in service of the whole. And all of our emotions actually have something to tell us, something to share with us, some sort of insight embedded within them. In a lot of cases, so I work as a trauma-focused psychotherapist, and in a lot of cases, somebody's strong emotions or reactions to situations will have within them a breadcrumb trail back to where that reactivity began, back to the original hurt that this person has been holding this whole time and has been reacting to in present time situations. You know, sometimes somebody will be in the midst of a really strong affect in a session, and I'll just have them close their eyes, sit with it in their bodies, and ask them, when's the earliest you can remember feeling exactly this way? And surprisingly enough, a whole scene will emerge of, like, you know, when I was 6 and this happened with my dad, or I was 8 and this happened with my mom, or whatever. So our emotions actually have information and insight, and really fuel. They're an energy source for us. And if we could just learn how to relate to them a little more humanely, because they are living energies too. That's the other thing about our emotions, is just like the earth, not necessarily a living being, that sounds a little funny to say, but definitely not a dead rock. How could it be so? How could it be so? The earth is sentient, feels things, is responding to us in all kinds of ways, giving us information back, isn't it? That climate change is kind of part of a dialogue in which we are the asshole, and we're finding out, we're getting certain repercussions from our negative objectifying behavior. And the same is true of our emotions, that they're sensitive, you know? Like if you're in an anxious state and you start hating your anxiety, isn't it true that the anxiety just amplifies? If you've ever tried that? Or if you've ever tried yelling back at your inner critic and found out that your inner critic could be even louder than it was to begin with. They're sensitive. They feel things from us. Right? Not necessarily living beings, but living energies. That if we were to step into a more compassionate and kind and warm, friendly engagement with them, it might just yield some really desirable results in our lives. So this is the practice I want to do with you all. And I'll just quickly say that we're not going to go into like childhood trauma territory or your worst fears or whatever. Actually, where we're going to start is where most of us are. Where most of us are is kind of a managerial sort of emotion, isn't it? Like kind of flat. For me to say you're in an emotional state right now, you might look at me and say, what? No, I'm not. I'm just here. I'm neutral. That's an emotional state. And that's an emotional state most of us live in most of the time. Strategizing and planning and trying to preempt disaster, and let me make sure I have enough of this, and if there's too much of this thing that I don't want, let me, try to get rid of that. Let me try to make sure that I'm there on time. Or if it was your first time here to Mindful, you might have walked in the room and said, okay, what's going on in here? How are people acting? How are people sitting? Let me make sure to not stand out too much, because I don't want to attract any trouble, right? I don't want to look like a fool. So we live in this kind of flat managerial emotional state most of the time. Why? Because we have vulnerable sides of us that we're trying to keep from coming to the surface. We all are carrying feelings of unworthiness, or I'm not good enough, or I'm unlovable in some way, or I'm a failure in some way, or some kind of hurt that we're just trying to keep at bay, right? And then when those vulnerabilities make their way to the surface, isn't it true that that's when the really strong defenses come out, such as anger, right? And so we live in this managerial mode most of the time to keep the vulnerabilities at bay, so that what are sometimes called our firefighters, our strong defenders, don't come out and make a mess of things. But there's another aspect of us, and that's the love that we were born with. That is who we know ourselves to be when our better wisdom emerges, who we know ourselves to be in the moments that we feel connected and safe and warm and a sense of belonging, when things are gratifying and we know that we're okay, and we're maybe with people that we love, or in situations where we feel connected, like out in nature, right? Isn't it true that your better self, or perhaps your truer self, emerges in those moments? So we're going to do a practice based on all of these ideas. Whew. starting with kind of the flatter managerial aspect that we're all starting from. And we're just going to see if in engaging in a particular way, if that better, wiser, warmer self can begin to emerge, and what kind of opportunities that opens up for us to work with other kinds of emotions. So please get comfortable. Let your seat be really heavy. Let your sits bones plug into the cushion. Let your spine lengthen. Let the crown of your head lift so the back top of your head can go up. Top tips of the ears lift towards the ceiling. This is going to lengthen your neck. And it might feel good to let your forehead tilt forward just a little bit to straighten the neck. And it might feel good to let your eyes gently close. And please make sure your hands are placed on either side of your lap, somewhere around mid-thigh, so that your shoulders aren't concaving forward. The space of the heart is open, available. And just drop in. And notice what it's like to be you. What it's like to be in this body right now. Let's take 5 deep breaths together. So please just breathe in nice and deep. Hold for a moment and then release with some sound. Good. We'll do 4 more just like that. Breathing in to really wake up the body. And exhaling to relax, release, surrender, let go, soften. 3 more. So please begin taking belly breaths. Slow, gentle, but deep breaths that really fill up the lower belly. And then a slow, long exhale out through the nose or through the mouth. And breathing in through the nose and sending that breath all the way down to the belly. And then slow, long, relax, exhales out. And you can even pretend that there's a balloon in the belly that you're breathing into. And it's expanding in all directions at once, causing the belly to expand as well. Don't worry, no one's looking. And please keep up these belly breaths for about 2 more minutes, making sure the rib cage is soft and relaxed, and the face is soft and relaxed. And this is a breathing pattern neurologists have found that people naturally slip into when they're in states of joy or expansiveness. And they've also found that you can induce such a state by breathing in this way for long enough. On the way there, the parasympathetic nervous system is stimulated. We begin to relax and find ease. Maybe the shoulders start to soften and melt. Maybe the bands of tension held in the pelvis and hips and glutes begin to melt. Or the cheeks and the jawline really softening. Hands melting into your lap. Okay. 1 more minute. And then if you've been exhaling through the mouth, you can let your lips close. Your teeth should remain parted so the jaw doesn't clench. And for everyone, please let your attention move up to the space of the heart. So you can find the center of your sternum and trace back into the body a little bit. And breathing now in such a way that when you breathe into the space of the heart. And out from the space of the heart. And just enjoying the poetic and elegant swelling and dissolving of inhale and exhale. And just enjoying one breath at a time. That's all you got to do. And if your mind is still running laps, and it's hard for you to even be here at all, try letting your exhales just fall out of the body. Let them fall out and just dissolve, 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 and let there be space while you wait for the impulse of the inhale to arrive. And then inhale very gently. And then you'll feel the little space at the top, and you'll feel how the next exhale just will go out all by itself. You don't have to push or work. And then space. And then a gentle inhale when the body tells you to inhale. In the space between breaths, there's that word again. Right? The space between, when we're not too close. The mind begins to open. Notice your emotional state, even if it's quite flat or neutral. Notice what it's like in your body as you breathe. And isn't it true that you spend so much time in this flatter, maybe slightly grumpy, maybe slightly happy, but flatter emotional state of planning, strategizing, getting through the day, taking care of business, preempting disaster. Getting all the emails taken care of, etc. So notice what that's like in your body. And can you begin to contemplate how this is a part of you? Right? It's not the real you. If that were true, you would always feel this way. You would always be in this state. But that this is a part of you that is on your side. Tries to help so much. It helps you hold it together. Helps you as much as possible keep things from falling apart. Just contemplate all that this part of you does for you. And begin to see if you can step back a little bit more from it. Just an energetic sense of separating out your sense of who you are from this emotional tone, this mental state of managing your life. Just see if you can take a step back, put a little bit of space between you and this state. And if it's true for you that you can see how this part of you is trying to help, is on your side and does so much good, then can it arise in you a sense of appreciation or maybe even gratitude for this part of you? Can you find that? You can even try as if you were speaking to another person, but within yourself silently. Try saying to this part of you, "Thank you. I see you, and I see how much good you do for me." Just try that and see what happens. Keep breathing. And then if it feels like the right thing for you to do, you can even ask if this manager part of you is willing to allow something a little more vulnerable, a little more tender in you to come forth. Not because you're masochistic, but because it would be an opportunity to hold space. It would be an opportunity for something tender to come forth in your practice and be felt and listened to and maybe even understood in a new way. And so try that. Try asking if something in you is longing to come forth into the space of awareness. And then notice what starts to shift. Make space for it, allow it, welcome it. Notice it in your body, what's starting to change. But make sure you keep a little bit of space between you and whatever this feeling is. And I invite you to ask of this part of you, is there something that you need me to know? Is there some sort of story that you've been wanting to tell me that you need me to hear? Just listen for once. But does it make sense for me to say that this is a child who deserves your care, who deserves empathy and warmth and kindness and consideration? And so for 1 minute, can you just hold her, hold this emotional state with your mind, with your attention, and just breathe and bring as much love as you can to the situation. And just see what that does. going to work our way out of this, and you can even invite this part of you to participate. Let her know you're about to do something that's really soothing. As you begin to take belly breaths again, just breathing in through the nose, letting the belly stick out a little as it fills up, and then a slow, relaxed exhale through the nose or the mouth. For 2 minutes. Feeling the ease that's associated with this breathing pattern begin to arise. And as you continue to breathe in this way for just 30 more seconds, allowing the two corners of your mouth to spread apart from one another and up towards the eyes a little bit. And just hold that and notice what it changes. Please transition very gently from your practice.